with Grush, I think, here's my take on it. I think he believes what he's saying, right? He has gone out there. I think I'm legit. Like, he was a 14-year veteran of military and National Reconnaissance Office, and I think he went out and he talked to enough people, and he believes it. I don't think he's out there like spinning a yarn and is worried that now he's gotten over his skis and he's said, too many things, and now I don't know. I don't feel like it's tidy, and the difference between us is I spent time with the government, and the government is sometimes can be really, really dysfunctional, and it goes back to keeping a secret. The idea that they could have this what essentially is a covert action campaign, to spread disinformation about what they actually know, right? When the easier thing to do is just to have the program, if it's the U.S. government's development of technology, right, and we're doing this, to have the program and just keep your yap about it, not go for a disinformation campaign, not try to muddy the waters by doing this, because in a sense, you're just creating more conversation around it. You're creating, now there's a little bit of a, movement within Congress to say we have to do this now. So they're going to look perhaps for a misappropriation of funds, right? Because they're not going to pursue like the UAP issue necessarily, right? But they might be interested in pursuing the misappropriation of funds. So if you're running a program, if it didn't, again, going back to the idea that it's a U.S. government thing, if you're running a program, that's the last thing you want to do, is because you're doing this program to avoid government oversight. You're not going to create this alternative narrative that, could generate the sort of publicity or the conversation, particularly up on Capitol Hill, that causes them to start looking and saying, well, where is money being spent? Right. Because there is a trail there, and that could cause a problem.
What are your instincts when you look at it? If I'm looking at it, I'm saying something's wrong, it seems like bullshit. What are your instincts?
I think I would like to, I don't think we're going to get there. But my instinct is to say, how do we solve this, or how do we come to some sort of logical resolution, as opposed to saying what is it right off the bat. My instinct is to say, all right, if the all domain anomaly resolution office has 800 cases, then tell us what those 800 cases are. Let's work our way through them, or have a little bit more transparency about working through those cases. Again, you'll probably whittle down, right, to, we were doing Black Files and we were going around talking to people about, various sightings and things. You're basically just crossing things off, going, okay, that was this, that was this, that was this. You find some pretty mundane answer, but you whittle it down to maybe one or two things that you can, and then you can investigate those and say, okay, well, all right, let's do it on these. But right now it's just like all over the map, and they've got so many cases, and they just kind of lump it all together. Are they doing that to obfuscate and create, this situation where it does seem like bullshit? And I don't know, but I think I'm not willing to shut the door on saying that those handful of those few sightings that where we do have technical data, we got video, we got radar lock, we got gun camera footage, whatever it may be, that can't be explained. I'm not willing to close the door and saying, well, it's is it, because who knows? Maybe China's doing the same thing. Oh, we're leading the hypersonic race right now. Great, but they've got another program, and they were responsible for the Tic Tac, right? So we have to pursue it. And if that leads a doorstep that says, oh, that's a U.S. government program and they've developed the technology, okay, fine. But I realize that, I'm not willing to close the door on saying it could be something else, otherworldly, right? Because I just don't know.
It could be.
I just don't know.
There is
who knows?
The infinite nature of space, which seems to actually be getting bigger.
Yeah, there was a way of putting it that my wife, who's a hell of a lot smarter than I am, tried to explain it to me, and I kept looking at it like this. But she had heard a program at one point where the person explained it like, okay, imagine how vast the ocean is, right? And how we've explored the ocean, but then you look at space and how immense it is, right, compared to the ocean, right?
Right.
the amount that we've explored in space, right, is equivalent to like a wine glass full of ocean water, right? So you take a wine glass full of ocean water, you look at it and you go, there's nothing there, right? You know, there's all those life forms, all those fish in the sea. It's kind of like that. And then, you know, you think about space and you think about what we know and what we don't know and how we imagine, like our limited capacity to imagine what life outside of Earth could look like.
Right.
So yeah.
But when you hear talk of like crashed retrieval programs.
Yeah. That keeps taking me back and is, you know, to this whole idea of if there was a crash retrieval and reverse engineering program like Rush talked about and had been in existence for decades, somebody would have fucking in their yap and talked about it. I think
other than Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar, and they would have had some better specifics, right? I mean, that's always the thing. It's always where it falls down. Well, I haven't seen it, but I talked to somebody who knows that it exists, right? And I think maybe it's because we're human, we're programmed to actually want physical evidence, right? We want to actually see it before we believe it. You know, that really hasn't happened yet.
What's one of the things that's fascinating is the narrative has shifted so wildly from it's completely preposterous to credible people like David Fravor and Ryan Graves and all these different people that are talking about multiple sightings, things that completely defy our understanding of what a vehicle is capable of doing, hovering completely motionless in 120 knot winds, all the whole, you know, whatever that thing is, the cube inside a sphere that they keep seeing over and over again.
Right.
Like,
almost hit one of the aircraft.
Yeah.
You know, and,
the fuck is that?
Yeah. And then they land. So I think, you know, one of the good developments out of all of this, and one of the things that may eventually lead to transparency, right? Because it will provide an avenue for these sightings, whether it's commercial or military pilots, as an example, to report it. Right, and to be more, and for the government to take it, perhaps, you know, again, it depends on whether it's a big conspiracy or not, to investigate in a more logical manner and in a more detailed manner. So I think just, again, the sheer act that we're talking about it, which then takes me back to the idea that, you know, if you're running a secret program, you don't want people talking, so you're not going to muddy the waters with a false narrative if you don't have to. Right. You know, if your concern is that someone's getting close to the truth and you got to do, okay, then maybe so, but. You know. Do
you think it's also possible there are patriots that do think that the American public deserves to know about this information and they have been sitting on it for a long time? That people like David Grush and all these various that are coming out and more apparently are wanting to come out.
Yeah. Well, interesting thing with Grush is, look, he said so during the hearing, right? I can't talk about that. I could talk about it in a skiff, right? In a sensitive environment. All right. Well, if I'm, you know, people on that subcommittee, I'm going to say, you know what, to my staff, schedule, you know, a skiff meeting with Grush. Get him in here and let's have him talk classified shit.
Right.
So that would be the next logical step in all of this.
Have they done that yet?
I don't know. I mean, it's, you know.
When he said, I could talk to you about it in a skiff, have people taken him up on that?
Well, you know, you'd have to ask him. No, I wouldn't know.
Right, and they wouldn't tell him.
Therein lies part of the problem, because if he sits there, but if he sits in the skiff and continues to kind of say, well, like, you know, okay, I don't, you guys aren't to hear this, and I can't. All right. Then you got questioning, you know, what he's actually got or what he's for sure, rather than just having this you know, witness interviews and sort of secondhand information. But I'm much more, I guess the point is, I'm much more interested in the direct sightings than this interviews, right?
Right, and the thing about he's not really a witness, right? He hasn't had any personal encounters with anything. Right. He hasn't had personal encounter with a craft. He hasn't seen a retrieved craft. He hasn't seen the biological entities. These are all just programs that he's been made aware of that he felt like people needed to know about. That's the narrative.
And again, not to disparage anybody, right? I mean, look, you know, if in fact, you know, some leaked his medical records, which it looks like, you know, did happen, right? Then that's pretty bullshit. Somebody needs to figure out what the hell is happening.
Let's see this. The information from Grush, who's unable to discuss specifics on what he told the Pentagon's watchdog arm. Lawmakers want to sit down with the former official in a sensitive compartmented information facility, a SCIF, to get additional information from him. The group has been blocked, however, by officials that have informed them that Grush doesn't currently have security clearance to discuss the issues in a skiff, according to Burchett. We think that we'll get there eventually. It's just frustrating. I'm ready to go, and the American public are ready to go, he said. Luna argued that the skiff with Grush could help lawmakers better understand the type of legislation they need to write regarding UAPs. She said she supports legislation that would declassify information on the phenomenon. So there seems to be some issue of secrecy and what's possible to discuss or what's legal to discuss.
Well, yeah, look, the government casts a very wide net when you're talking about classified information. Right. I mean, the government has overclassified information for decades and decades, right? And you've got secret, top secret, code word, and they tend to just hoover everything up and classify it, right? And then it takes fucking forever, right, to go through that process of declassification, and because nobody wants to put their neck out at that point and say, yeah, let's declassify this, right? Once it's in that pot. But the question is, great, you're saying, you can talk about it in the skiff. Well, damn it, then that's the next. That's what the subcommittee should be doing. Right? That's their job, right? If they're curious, right, and if they're sincere about trying to get to the bottom of this, and that's theoretically their job, then they should. Because again, going back to the main thing, and people can say, well, why are you wasting your time on this? But you can always circle back to the top line, which is it's for national security purposes. We want to know what the hell's going on,
right?
And so. Yeah, we'll see. I guess that's the question that's thrown at Grush, or should be thrown at the subcommittee members.
I'm also shocked how few people care. I feel like people are so overloaded with information today because of social media and because of the news cycle. People are so overloaded with information that this barely registered on people other than UFO nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there was a surprising amount, I thought anyway, of sort of mainstream. It wasn't particularly deep, right? It just kind of covered, okay, it was a hearing. And I think they did it because, look, it's UFOs or UAPs, right? Mm-hmm. And so, they knew they'd get some clicks on it if they were putting it online or whatever. And they didn't pursue it, like has been any, I haven't seen any stories that talked about the follow-up with Grush. There were a couple of stories talking about the fact that perhaps his medical records were leaked, as a result.
And the medical records showed what? That he had some sort of a psychiatric condition? That he had an event or something like that?
PTSD, I think he, some suicidal depression issues.
Standard stuff with military veterans.
He had done his time in Afghanistan, right? And so that doesn't, it means nothing, except for the fact that it shouldn't be out there, right? The record should be damn well private.
Well, not only isn't that what we want, why don't you shut your little dinger off there, fella?
Is that me going?
Yeah, that's why your phone rang,
too. What the hell? God,
you got to learn how to use that little switch on the side. But
thank you for my IT lesson.
Isn't that what you want that's the whole purpose of providing these services for veterans, that when they do have suicidal thoughts and they are struggling with PTSD, that they get help. I mean, the idea that they're shaming him and saying that his report is not credible because of this seems ridiculous.
Bullshit. Yeah.
It's totally bullshit.
Yeah, and he said he's come out since and said, look, I did help. I'm in a better place. And he was happy that people were talking about it. They should be talking about it. Look, we lose a shocking number of veterans to suicide, right? And it's disgusting that we don't, that the government doesn't work hard at this, right? And spend more effort. I know a couple of people who do amazingly good work at the VA in terms of counselors, right? They're not managers, they're not executives. They work with the veterans every day, right? It's incredible what they do. But overall, as a government, our assistance, right, to veterans. You look at the number of homeless situations. It's pathetic. And so when he talks about it, it's good that he's talking about it, right? I think that transparency helps, and he clearly views it that way too. And he said, I don't have any problem with discussing it, but we should be concerned by the fact that somehow his medical records were put out there. And then, some people will look at that and go, well, is that the government's effort to discredit him? Or is that somebody's effort to discredit him? I don't know why anybody else would. Why would you do that?
How do these systems really work? So this is my conspiracy detection kit. The grander the conspiracy theory, the less likely it is to be true. Like say Volkswagen cheating the emission standards in Europe. That's a very specific conspiracy theory. Turned out to be true. They really did do that, and for obvious reasons, profit motive, right? But so if you scale up from that, they're trying to control the entire European economy or something like. Well, no, that's too big.
They're just trying to make money.
They're just trying to make money. So, the more people that have to be involved, the more elements that have to come. People are incompetent. People can't keep their mouth shut.
For the most part.
For the most part, yes. Now, to be fair to the other side, if you read about the development of the U-2 spy plane and the AR-71 Blackbird, this was done in Burbank. Near where you used to live. And that's right in the heart of L.A. How did they do this for all those years and nobody knew about it?
Acting on the interests of the government. They were trying to be patriots. They kept their mouth shut because they were trying to win a war against the evil others.
Right. So, again, like with the recent UAP sightings, my initial response is the SR-71 Blackbird was, before it was declassified, they were commercial pilots. Oh my God, there's something going 3,000 miles an hour, 50,000 feet above me at 30,000 feet. This is impossible. We don't have anything like. Well, actually, we did have something like that.
Yeah.
So I suspect that
that's what you think.
A decade or two, we're going to find out. Oh, we had these incredible drones that could fly at these speeds.
I have to lean towards that as well. Sometimes I go back and forth with it. I had Ryan Graves on recently.
I saw that.
It was a fascinating conversation because the way he was describing things with no visible means of propulsion, no technology that we currently know is available could act in the way those things were acting. I wonder if that is what it is, if they have some sort of very advanced drones. And the fact that they seem to be transmedium, they seem to be able to enter into the ocean and then leave the ocean. I wonder if that's something that we have, because these things, they're, one of the ones that he described is like a translucent circle with a black sphere inside of it.
Right.
And that when they updated their radar systems in 2014, they started seeing them all over the place on their systems. And that these people spotted them visually, and that they were behaving in a way like at 130 mile an hour winds were completely stationary. I wonder if those are super advanced drones.
Another problem with these is that they're very grainy, blurry. You can't quite make out what's going on. Like the one that it looks like it goes in the ocean, comes back out. It's not clear that it goes in the ocean because the horizon in the ocean is so blurry, right? So I'm a member of this Galileo project at Harvard, run by Avi Loeb, head of the astronomy department.
I had Avi on.
Yep, I know.
Yeah.
And he's raising money to put cameras, high resolution cameras, all over the world, particularly in the places where people like Graves say when Graves told you, we saw these things every day, it's like every day. There surely must be high resolution photos of these things.
But those jets are not designed to take high resolution video. They're designed to fight against enemy jets.
Right.
That's what they're designed for. They're designed to recognize these enemy combatants and engage with them in the most effective way possible. That's not with high resolution digital video.
Right. Well, that would be the sin. We just need better data. Right.
Well, I wonder if they want better data. Now, let's assume.
We do.
The government, but listen, the federal government. Imagine they are running top secret programs using advanced drones and a technology that we're not currently aware of, right? And that the United States government has these. They wouldn't want people taking videos of these things. Why would they?
Right, but one has one of these in their pocket.
But you get digital video of something that's 7 miles away, moving at the speed of sound.
Well,
you're not going to get digital video.
That's what we want a Galileo project.
And according to Christopher Mellon, a guy who did work for the Defense Department, he said there are top secret videos and photographs that he's seen or that he's aware of that are pretty spectacular that they don't understand.
Right. Them say that, it's like, okay, then let's see them. Well,
but why would they release that? This is like if they, just like the Blackbird, just like the stealth bomber, many of the other projects that they have that were top secret before they became public, why would they release all that information?
Probably wouldn't. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder what that stuff is. And the fact that it happens so often in that very specific area, who knows?
Another thing about with the UAPs is in the history of technology, no nation gets very far ahead of any other nation.
Right.
They either back engineer it or copy it or steal the secrets and so on. Not likely we would have anything that the Russians and Chinese wouldn't be pretty close to having also. Just think of just the development of jets.
Or the development of the nuclear bomb.
The nuclear bomb. I mean, the Russians had, so 1945 was Hiroshima, and 1949 the Russians, they stole our secrets, right? So this idea that, these are super advanced drones that we have and the Russians and Chinese don't have, it's not likely they would not know the technology that we know, the physics, the aerodynamics, and the engineering and all that, because they read the same journals. They do the same research we do.
So what do you...
Well, I think it's probably multiple things. I think some of them might be drones that just really high-tech drones. Some of them are just blurry videos that are... I think the one of the sphere inside the cube, or cube
inside the sphere
is probably a balloon.
A balloon,
yes.
A balloon that stands stationary at 130 mile an hour winds?
Appears to stand stationary.
Appears with sophisticated tracking devices that these military jets have.
I know, these are anomalies, so we just need better data.
Why would you think...
What else would it be? Okay, it might be, it might be a drone. It's certainly probably not an alien spacecraft and so on.
Certainly, probably not. Why do you say that?
This is kind of gets into the argument of this program.
Yeah.
There's so much empty space out there. The chances of them finding us are pretty slim. I
Really?
separate.
But we have planets all the time.
Yeah, but
We are
telescopes, not visible.
Telescopes and satellites and all sorts of things that we send into space. But we find planets all the time that are in the Goldilocks zone, and we have very relatively unsophisticated in terms of like what we'd expect from something that's capable of intergalactic travel. Relatively simple technology in comparison to what we would think if you took what we have today and you increased our capabilities, 1,000 years from now. You could imagine that it would be quite easy for someone to at least send a drone from another planet to visit Earth and observe.
This is Fermi paradox.
Yes.
Yeah, that you know of. And where are they? Well, of course, most scientists like him don't think they're here. So I separate two questions.
Most scientists? Michio Kaku thinks they're here.
He's been a little fuzzy about that. He's not totally committed to that.
He's totally committed. He was here. So? He was here, and he talked about it on the podcast. He said for the longest time he was a skeptic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, it's kind of come down on that side a little bit.
But why are we firm on that? When you think about the fact that there's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe.
Yes. Separate two questions. Are they out there? Have they come here? Are they out there? Almost certainly.
Right.
I would say 99.9% they're out there.
I would agree with you.
100 billion stars in our galaxy, 100 billion to a trillion galaxies. Just do the numbers.
Yeah.
No matter how improbable it is, you get from bacteria to big brains and civilization, it's going to happen.
Right.
But have they come here? Okay, so how good is evidence for that? Not very. It's pretty thin, right?
How
it's
good?
Anecdotal. It's human eyewitnesses. It's blurry videos, grainy photos. If they were here, where's pick up the widget on the dashboard and bring it back here.
But just looking at what we know that these fighter pilots have witnessed, the data that they've acquired, when they're looking at something like Commander David Fravor, who, when they were off the coast of the Nimitz, when they tracked that thing that went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. What's that?
I don't know.
What is that thing that they have visual contact by multiple sources, and they tracked it, and they have video of this thing moving off at insane rates of speed? What's that?
Yeah. This is the problem with anomalies. No theory explains everything, right?
But if there was any evidence that pointed to something that operated in a way that we can't comprehend any of the known technologies being able to reproduce, that's one of them.
But no technologies come out of a vacuum like that. They always build on pre-technologies.
Right, but if you're talking about something, the planet,
well, okay,
or something from another civilization that we're not aware of that's on Earth, maybe that lives in the water, we don't know. We don't know. And when you're seeing these things, when you're talking about people that are the best fighter pilots that we have available, that are operating with the most sophisticated fighter jets, with tracking systems that are constantly being updated, and then when they update them, they start picking up these things, like Ryan Graves discussed on the podcast. Why would you think that those are not possibly something from somewhere else?
It depends on how you want to pose the problem. So here's how I think about it. So I take Leslie Kean's a book on UFOs and pilots and generals go on the record and so on. In that book, she says 90 to 95% of all sightings have perfectly normal explanations.
I would probably agree that's true.
So the question is, what do we do with that other 5% of anomalies? Okay, no theory explains everything. There's always going to be anomalies in every scientific theory. What do you do with it? Nothing. You assign to a graduate student to figure it out, or that's future research. Rather than going to a grand theory of visitation by aliens, or the Russians or Chinese have these super advanced technologies that we don't have, or we have them and they don't have. I mean, again, if we had this technology, surely the Russians have something pretty close to that. There's nothing from the videos in Ukraine of any Russian drones that act anything like these UAPs. Surely they would use this technology if they had it.
Well, we're assuming that those UAPs are military in nature and not something that they use to observe things.
It could be.
I mean, why would we assume that these things, if they're capable of behaving in this way and they're just some sort of a device that can travel at insane rates of speed, why would we assume that those things can launch missiles or act in a military capacity?
Right.
There are UAP sightings over Ukraine. Yeah.
Okay, so Avi did a nice paper on that, showing that these were artillery shells and not what the other people thought it was, that it was like a drone or a plane or something weird like that. He showed that if it was what they thought it was, it would have had a much bigger impact going through the atmosphere at that speed and burning up. But it didn't, so these are artillery shells. Anyway, he did a nice paper on that.
Interesting.
So,
So, but about these things that supposedly move far faster than the speed of sound without the sonic boom.
Yeah, how possible?
How is that possible?
That's right. It's not.
That's where it gets weird.
That's where it gets right.
But
so
the
really
question
moving?
is it hours?
Is it really at that speed, or is it a misperception of a miscalculation? Scientists make miscalculations of these things all the time.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was posed to David Fravor, and he said they have multiple sources of data. It's not just like one system that's monitoring these things. It's multiple systems.
Yeah. And I follow these guys. I agree. They are incredibly credible, right? And they have good arguments. What do you do with the anomalies?
I think you're an anti-conspiracy theorist. That's what
No, I'm a skeptic, Joe.
I know you are.
I'm
the
just a skeptic.
editor. What's your position in Skeptic Magazine?
I'm the editor-in-chief, publisher of Skeptic Magazine. There it is, my day job.
Yeah.
But it isn't that I don't believe things. I mean, I believe the theory of evolution. I think the Big Bang Theory happened when people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and my physics friends tell me quantum physics is true. This is how we know it. To me, it's weird, spooky. I don't really understand it, but okay. We have tons of evidence.
So, what do you remember from that moment on?
When I regained consciousness, it wasn't real quick. It wasn't real walking right up. It was real slow. It was dim. My consciousness was kind of like in and out for a while. I didn't know where I was. The pain and the feeling that I was mortally wounded, something was so wrong inside. I felt like I was dying. And this is what really fueled the panic when I finally laid eyes on these creatures. Of course, all of the mental programming that we get from Hollywood that aliens are invading monsters, didn't help. But I instantly associated this feeling of dying with pain with them. So I was combative immediately.
Where were you?
I was lying on back on a raised table. There was a light above me. It was not real bright. It was not so bright that I couldn't, see the outline of the fixture. But
what did the fixture look like?
Kind of like that, only much larger. Just a soft glow. And in the movie, there's a little bit of striking on the part of the aliens against me. That didn't happen. I lashed out at them. The one closest to me, I felt really weak. I didn't have enough strength to do much. So when my arm contacted him, he just fell back very unexpectedly easy into the other one. And I rolled off the table in the other direction. And they came around the table, and the three of them were coming towards me. And I just grabbed something from behind me, an object off of the shelf there, and started swinging it at them.
What was the object?
It was just some large, long cylinder or rod, glass, some clear material. I wasn't studying it. I was looking at them and swinging wildly, screaming threats. They stopped. And I was planning on attacking more fully, just making way past them. The only doorway I could see was on the other side of them.
And it looked like a doorway?
Yeah, it looked like a door. Just, I guess it's a pretty typical description nowadays. Very large eyes, hairless, two eyes, nose, mouth. I didn't see them speak or no change in the expressions. And to me, that in the face of all the screaming and the fear that I was projecting, their lack of reaction probably just added to my panic. But
did they think they were a living creature, or did they feel like they were a robot?
Well, without expression, I'll say that. But, I've had 45 years to think about that. In more recent years, I think, well, maybe if they're telepathic and it's developed enough to where they don't need to talk, they also don't need facial expression.
Right.
And so their ability to communicate with each other would be much richer and more complete than we have. And speech and frowns or smiles or whatever would become obsolete pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that's a theory about where human beings are headed. If we continue to evolve, that we will one day reach this point where the biological limitations of our monkey bodies will slowly start to fade away, and we'll have different abilities to
well,
communicate.
why would we frown or smile if you can say much more?
And so their musculature, did they look like smooth, like they had no clear muscles?
Yeah, were pretty smooth, very light. When I hit the one, it fell back into the other one pretty easily, like he weighed hardly anything.
Like a little.
Yeah. That was the most terrifying experience of my life. But when I tell this story and try to relate to people, I'm trying to communicate what I experienced and how utterly, utterly traumatic that was, and how it was so devastating. I was, on the verge of catatonic for weeks after it happened. But I don't want to relate this story in order to inspire fear, because I've had enough time to think about it that I think that it was unwarranted, that my reaction was just due to my ignorance of the situation. The fact that I was returned at all is pretty significant,
Yeah.
The idea that these beings are just kidnapping people willy-nilly and doing terrible things to them, I don't subscribe to that theory. Now, I try to separate what I actually experienced from things that I've concluded just from thinking about it. But it seems to me that, they've been seen, observed, there have been sightings for all, before I was born.
Had you heard the Betty and Barney Hill story before you were abducted?
No, I probably had. But if I thought if they had some sort of sinister intentions, it'd be a done deal. They wouldn't be sneaking around, hiding, and
Right.
I believe with that level of technology. Look at it this way: human beings just virtually everything technological that we have is just a few hundred years old. Before that, the most technological thing we had was fire. And in just the last 50 years, the progress of our science has grown to far overshadow everything we had accomplished in thousands of years before that. So I'm thinking what astronomers tell us about these other star systems is that they could be hundreds of thousands, millions, or maybe billions of years older than us. So if we accomplished the kind of technology that we have in a few decades, what is possible with millions of years of development? I mean, we couldn't begin to recognize what they're capable of.
Right.
So I think it's presumptuous for people to say, oh, they could never do that.
It really is an interesting conundrum because we know what we can do and we know where we came from. We have a very clear history of technology when it comes to humans. And we also know that there are planets surrounding stars all throughout our galaxy and all throughout the universe. But we're still skeptical. It's so funny. And
Yeah,
so
it is.
But for a guy like you who's actually encountered it, even though you saw it, it had to not seem real.
Oh, yeah, in your sanity, for sure. I mean, it was like I was practically catatonic for days afterwards.
We were following and pleading with him all the way out there. Please, just tell us, please. I swear on my life this happened. He gets in the car, doors open. He looks up, and the only reason why I'm telling you this because he died. He looks up at Mark, and he goes, "It happened." Closed the door, and off he went. Now, the reason why I share that is because that's not something that I can put any weight on for the documentary for people like you, right? But as a personal message for me, knowing that validation on the inside, it kept going. It was like, okay, why on earth would he have done that? Why on earth would he say? And that kept Marco and I going, and that was a personal level of validation. That
is there any conventional explanation why the military shut everything down, why they had military barricades set up around that area?
No, they did try to say that the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities, but I've seen the guy, Modine or something like that. But you talk to the witness.
Why would the military shut the town down because a guy with deformities?
And then for the doctors in the hospital, they said, oh, there was having a baby or something weird, just something that was just so ridiculous. It was like, and you talk to the witnesses and they're just like, oh, come on, I'm not even going to, that's level at best. I mean, these girls came within 8 to 10 feet, 3 women, Katya, 2 sisters, Liliani, and Volvia, 14, 16, and 21. They got within 8 to 10 feet in broad daylight of this creature. And one of the things that doesn't come across in the film, when they this thing, they're looking like, what are we looking at here? They're walking through this field, and it's up against a block wall. And one of them was looking at it, and it was crouched by the wall. It was weak and feeble. And one of them kind of like screeched, like, what is that? And it turned, and it looked right at the girls, eyes on them. Liliana grabs her younger daughter, her sister, who's 14, Valkyria, and hightails it out of there. Katya is 21. She's frozen in her tracks, lies with this creature, and it's communicating with her. Please help me. He wants help. It's weak, and it's feeble, and it's scared, and it's crouched down. Liliani realizes that back there, she gets, 100 feet down the path. She leaves sister, stay here, I'm going back to get Katya. She runs back. And I asked Katya, and I asked all the girls, during that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, in that moment of contact, what did you feel? Like, put me there. That's where the time's from, moment of contact, because that was when they locked eyes on this creature. And Katya said, help me, I'm scared. And it was feeble and suffering. And it's a very powerful moment. And these girls have been saying the same thing. The mother, it's the first time I'd ever reported on these so-called like men in dark suits that show up and intimidate witnesses. Honestly, I've been hearing about those cases for so many times, but I've avoided them because it's got so much baggage from men in black. It just ridiculous. I just didn't even want to be associated with it. But I'd heard it. I can go on until I'm blue in the face. I go till tomorrow morning with the amount of cases, with generals too. But this time, when the mother said that these men showed up and tried to get the daughters to say they were lying and offered her a briefcase full of $100 bills and they could relocate, I don't know. For some reason, I said, okay, for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to report on these guys. And I did. And it's in the movie. You can hear the mother talk about it, and she's so emotional. And the mother came back to the location right after it happened. The smell, that stench, and the footprint on the ground. I mean, everybody talks about that stench, that it was so... They said, take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000. That would give you some indication of the level of like how nasty. It was paralyzing. And it stayed in the areas, like at the hospitals when they did the x-rays, and everybody talks about it. That stench, it was unbelievable. Like it fills your navel cavities and doesn't leave for a week. It was incredible. And they all said the same thing.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, the guy said that he had to close off that wing of the hospital while they were sanitizing it because it was intense. So
How long did it for?
Days and weeks is what I heard from people. And even the mother said when she went to where the creature was, she said that the stench, even there after the creature was gone, got in her nasal cavities, and she tried to flush it out with water and saline or whatever, and she just couldn't get it out of her nasal cavities. Really crazy. But they all did. I mean, everybody talked about that stench, I mean, the military officer, the guy that drove the creature around, I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, and I'm looking this guy in the eyes. I could be looking at a guy that drove a fucking alien around. You have no idea, dude. You have no idea.
How did he describe it?
So fucking intense. When I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got, smoothies and coffee, and I'm just like, you guys have no idea. I think an alien spaceship crashed, and they recover live aliens, and we made contact, and the Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about. So I told a couple people. On the last trip I came back, I was just like so rocked. I couldn't reintegrate back into culture. I was just like, fuck, I think this happened. It's the biggest story ever. So people were asking me, a neighbor who runs that Make-A-Wish Foundation, he was like, James, he goes, bro, I like you. I got a lot of respect for you, but you lost me on this one. And I was like, I don't blame you, bro. I really don't. But listen to the witnesses. That's all I say. And I told people, and I realized I can't talk about it. All I can do is just listen to the witnesses. Don't take it from me. But I'm looking at a guy in the eyes, Joe. And I've been at this for 30 years. I'm working on my 7th film right now. I'm looking in the eyes, and I'm like, this guy probably drove an alien around. And it hit me out so hard. And it ruined his life. He's to get this guy to go on camera, just like earlier, he was like, I don't care all the money in the world. I'm never coming forward. The risks are too high.
How did it ruin his life?
Because you're harboring this secret. You're being watched. You're being told not to ever talk about this. And you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And they call you, the military calls you periodically. They want who you are. And he's got this secret inside him that he can't tell the rest of the world. And he's thinking about all the different, everybody out there speculating, is it real, is it fake, is it real, is it fake? And this guy drove body around. Just think about that for a second. Think about the doctor who took the x-rays of this thing. Marco Leal, thank you, Marco, you're the man. Marco Leal found him 8 years ago. And he was like, he confirmed the story. He was still working at Regional Huddle. He goes, I'll never come forward. Marco kept going back and forth. Then he retired. And 4 years after he retired, he agreed with us. He wasn't even sure he was going to go on. And I said, look, man, we'll film you from the back. We'll disguise your voice. Showed us photographs of him at the hospital. We know we've been trying to get at him. Excuse me. At the end of the interview, he said, thank you. I feel so much better. I've been shouldering that burden for 20 years, and I've so desperately wanted to tell somebody, to share that story with the rest of the world. And you meet these people, and you think, why on earth they didn't come to us? They're not trying to sell their story. We tracked them down and begged and pleaded with them to come forward. When I found Martha, the sister of the deceased military officer, Marco Chirizi, we were knocking on doors. I remember the sound guy from Rio de Janeiro. He was like, you're out of your mind. Dude. What are you doing? You can't just knock on random doors. I was like, man, if there's a way, I'm going to find this lady. And we found her. It was like this kind of sketchy area. You know, it's like when you get out of your car and you could see like people drawing the curtains back and looking at you and you're standing out. Like, dude, I stood out like a sore thumb. And then we walked up. I had Marco with me, thank God. And we had camera crews and stuff. It's kind of sketchy. And Mark appears, and her husband appears in this he's a big guy, and he's got like a white beater shirt on, and he looks like he wants to rip my fucking head off. And I'm like, and she's looking at me, and he's just looking at her going, Marta's looking at him, and her husband's looking at Marta like, give me the signal, I'll kill this guy. That's the, and I was looking at Marco, and I was like, James, you need to think on your feet right now. And I said immediately, please translate this. I'm here to give your brother justice. I'm here to get the story out. Please, talk to me. And we developed a relationship with her for that. And those were the first words that we exchanged. And we eventually got her to come and we talked. She'd gone forward in the past, but she doesn't know who the hell I am.
I want to take you back to the doctor.
Okay.
When you talked to the doctor, what did he describe?
He said that it was a normal day. January 1996, it was a regional hospital. Said every day, and all of a sudden, all these military trucks and police cars showed up at the hospital. They come in armed, and they got a bag. They got a thing in a black body. And he was like, what the hell's going on here? They're all, you're going to be taking some x-rays. And he's like, okay. And they had him inside, and they had armed guards. And asking him, like, what was it like? Because when I interview witnesses, I always ask them to project. Sometimes I'll even close my eyes because I'll use their words to recreate. So I'm like living it through them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'll close my eyes and I'll recreate the scenes in my head with their words, right? It's harder in Portuguese because I'm having to get it translated. But I ask questions like, what was the atmosphere like? Was there any talking? No talking. Super tense atmosphere, very tense. Armed guards on the outside, armed guards on the inside, military trucks running. Nobody comes, nobody goes. And he said, first time in in the history of my career, I took the eggs and I couldn't even verify that they were good because they took them immediately. And then they said this event never happened. He said the stench in the hotel, in the hospital was overwhelming. And he goes through the different X-rays that he took, the abdomen, the head, the arms, the legs, the thorax, and it was incredible. In fact, Uberajada Rodriguez, if you're listening to this, he's one of the leading researchers. He's gone quiet. Peccacini disappeared for 20 years.
Did he get to see images himself? Did he get to see the body himself?
Oh, he was right. Well, they didn't open the bag, but he said the stench was just overwhelming.
So they through the body bag?
They x-rayed it through the body bag. He did not see the alien.
And he didn't get to see the x-ray images or anything?
Nope. They wouldn't let him see a damn thing. Nope. Now, there were two doctors. There was a guy named Roger Lear. Roger Lear found out, these are people that I really want. I mean, people are coming forward in droves right now. We just got two pathologists for the first time ever working together to come forward with statements, and they're providing documentation of the autopsy reports done on the deceased military officer. That's the first time ever these guys are coming forward. It's happening right now.
Let's explain what happened to people who haven't watched the documentary to the deceased military officer.
Yeah, so right after the three girls came within 10 feet of this creature, or being, or entity, or ET, whatever you want to call it, about an hour later, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say probably maybe around 5 o'clock, there were two military guys on patrol, on the lookout for something unusual, is what they were told. They didn't say a UFO had crashed. They were on the lookout for something highly unusual. And it was Eric Lopes at the wheel and Marco Chirizi, military police, in the passenger seat. They were about a block and a half to blocks away from where the girls had seen the creature a couple of hours earlier. And this thing runs across the car in front of them. He had slammed his brakes on, and without a moment's hesitation, Marco Chirizi jumps out of the car and grabs the thing with his bare hands. Yeah. And he puts it in the back seat, and they drive it to a clinic. And the doctor is like, what the hell is that? Get it out of here. I don't know what, leave. So they went to regional hospital. And then ultimately it went to Humanitas Hospital. And so we have testimony from Military X that when he drove it from Humanitas Hospital, it's in the movie, but he drove it from Humanitas Hospital to as a military base. We're the night in the truck for one night, and then it went from there to Espesex, Campinas. It's like a university. It's where all the intellectual, scientific heavyweights reside. And then it was there, I think, under examination, according to the ones that we talked to, for a day or two, and that's when the Americans flew in to Campinas. And we have the radar military control officer who came forward last year, actually 2 years ago, when we were there filming this time. His name is Marco Feres, F-E-R-E-S, and he came forward for the first time and he said, yeah, in January 1996, this plane came in, USAF, he kept calling it, United States Force, came in, it didn't have the authorization of the Brazilian government. He was like, can't land. And some higher-up stepped into the room. This is his testimony. I'm just relaying what he said. He said some higher-up came in the room and said, let it land. And it came and it landed at Campinas. And then from Campinas, 2 helicopters, according to him, flew to Varginha, Brazil, Varginha back to Campinas. Then they loaded something on the air and then off to the United States. And that's where the case goes cold.
This is one of the things that they say, people that have been abducted. I had Travis Walton, this guy.
I've seen.
This
I've
guy,
watched.
his bobblehead.
Yeah, I've watched
He's
it.
very compelling in his descriptions of his encounter with these beings. But one of the things that he was saying was they were talking to him, but it wasn't with words. Like they were communicating with him, and he understood what they were saying, but it wasn't. They weren't saying things in a like, "Hey, Travis, why don't you relax? Because we're here from planet fucking whatever it is."
The information was faster
Yes.
because it was like boom right away. What I think, you get it.
Yes, they were explaining things to him in some sort of a telepathic way.
Wow.
And it was mind blowing to him. And I think that that's probably the future of communication. Just like you can transmit information from phone to phone, right? You can call people. They're nowhere near you, but you can talk to them. You can send a video to someone. It's going through the air. It's just data, right? It's just information.
Do you think Travis and Bob Lazar and all these guys have extraordinary claim? Believe what they are telling you? I don't know if what they believe is true, but what do you think they believe what they are telling you in a way that they're not lying, they're telling the truth of what they're believing?
I tell for certain, but I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe he's telling me. Now, Bob, he had one moment where he was passing by a window and he said he saw something that was small and these people were standing over it, and he didn't know if it was an alien or whether it was some sort of a form that they were trying, like a doll or something that's supposed to represent the size of an alien or some sort of a model of an alien. But he remembers he looked briefly through a window and he saw something small. He didn't see it move around, didn't see it talk, so he doesn't know what he saw.
Yeah.
Because in his world, as he explained it, when he was working at Area 51, Site 4, that's where he worked. He said that it was very compartmentalized. And his thing is one of the problems with them trying to figure out, now this is assuming he's telling the truth.
Yeah, of course.
One of the problems they were trying to figure out was how to back engineer these devices, these ships. But the problem was they weren't allowed to communicate with other people outside of this very limited group of people that had access to these vehicles, and the people that were involved in the metallurgy were not allowed to communicate with the people that were involved in whatever the propulsion system was. They didn't understand what they were trying to decipher these things. But he said, and if you listen to the podcast that I did with him, that it didn't work because the scientific method requires multiple people to communicate and share ideas and to explain, and they didn't do that.
You can't improve like that.
Right.
You need to share idea.
Right.
You can't do something and compartmentalize everything.
But my communication with him, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but he didn't seem deceptive.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant guy.
It's clear he's clearly like borderline genius. You hear him speak, he's very educated.
And some of the things that he talked about came to fruition. Like one of the things was there was a concept of this thing called element 115, right?
Yeah.
Now that was not really proven until the 2000s, or somewhere in the 2000s. They used a particle collider and created this thing where it was a very unstable, very short-lived particle. But he was saying that wherever these beings are from, they have figured out a way to utilize a stable version of this element 115, and that's how they propel themselves. The things that he was describing were also exactly the same things that were experienced by Commander David Fravor, who was a guy who was a jet pilot.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so he experienced this thing move in that same direction, that same way, where there was no visible propulsion system, but they tracked this thing going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 1 in 1 second. So that's the amount of time that it takes radar to track this. So it might have been less than a second.
Yeah,
this thing traveled from 80,000 feet to 1,000.
No time.
To 1 feet.
It's
In
like
no
that
time.
thing with the hand. He says he measured the distance between the bone and the, when you get in, you put your hand in it and measure the distance between your bone and the...
Oh, the scan, yes. The scanner.
There's a lot of things like this. And, like Zacharias Sitchin was... there's a lot of stuff that you can think of that how could they know that at the time? But it's
well, the Zacharias Sitchin stuff is interesting, right?
Yes.
That's all the Sumerian text. The Sumerian text is some fascinating stuff because it's all from 6,000 years ago. And by the way, Zacharias Sitchin, he's very controversial. There's even a website called SitchinIsWrong.com, and it's basically scholars of ancient Sumerian who say that his translations are completely off. But even if his translations are off, there's still a lot of really confusing stuff about ancient Sumer. And one of the things is their depictions of the solar system. They had a depiction of the solar system 6,000 years ago that shows the sun in the center, and it shows all of the known planets in the outside. And they're relatively accurate in terms of the size.
Yeah, and how about the formation of the Earth? Tiamat, Marduk. I don't remember which one is what, that's
the formation of the Earth.
That's
yes.
the model that we use today.
Well, the scientists,
the asteroid belt,
yes.
like that we use today. How did he know that at that time?
I don't know how they knew that. When is Earth 1 and Earth 2, and what that means is that there was an original version of Earth, and then Earth was hit by another planet at some point in the distant past, and that's what created the moon, and that's also what created the asteroid belt.
That goes on the different direction than the rest of the planet. Like they knew that too.
Well, there's also a thing called Bode's law, and Bode's law measures the distance between planets, and it's based on the mass of the planet, and they figure out, because of the mass of the planet, how far these planets are from each other. And one of the things that fucks that up is the asteroid belt. I think what I might be wrong about this, but the distance between Mars and Jupiter is one of the things that screws that up, and they think that's explained by the asteroid belt, that some collision created this asteroid belt and created all of the... there's something like 900,000 known near-Earth objects that were created by the impact of these planets.
One thing and I'm sure you're the same because you had a lot of these guys on your podcast, like Graham Hancock,
yes.
Randall Carson, Jonathan E. West. Like
yes.
There's clearly knowledge that we've lost
yes.
in the past. Like this is for sure. Like just think about the Library of Alexandria.
Yes.
Man, imagine the knowledge that it was in there before it burned.
I know. Imagine.
Oh man.
Imagine.
People thinks we lost like 1 millennia, like just when it burns. That of knowledge, medicine, botany,
yes.
science. It's just crazy to think of. So very often, sometimes when crazy stuff happen like that, like I just think that perhaps they had knowledge there's knowledge that we lost. Like just think about the Greek fire. It's a weapon that was used in the naval battle. And it's really, really known about historian. You can research. They still don't know exactly how it works, but it was so destructive. It was like, at the time, it was like a secret weapon. Like they didn't want to share. And it was known to be very efficient in naval battle.
I don't know what that is.
If you go Greek fire, you'll get it. Boom. It was used in naval battle. So they used to throw fire, flames. And they used to people that are burning, they still burn in the water. So they think it was made with some kinds of petrol or or they still don't know. They cannot recreate it. And it's clearly something that a lot of historians have talked about. It's called Greek fire. It's just an example that it's clear that it's a technology that we have lost.
Well, if you just look at the pyramids, the pyramids are a perfect example of technology lost. It's almost like the best example. Like those ancient civilizations almost letting everyone know, hey, there is information that we have that's so above and beyond what's expected of people from this era. Yeah. Because if you think about people that lived 2,500 BC, you don't think about someone that had the kind of proficiency to create something that, when people don't understand, it's not just that the pyramids were big, but they were so perfectly designed that when they put all the stones, they reached the top. Like if anyone was off by even a half an inch at the bottom, as time went on, an inch here, an inch there, by the time they got to the top, it would be all fucked up. It wouldn't be perfect. But the pyramids were so amazingly perfect, and they were originally covered in smooth limestone. So smooth, polished limestone that would probably be insane to look at if you were staring at it from a distance. Like this immense structure of 2,300,000 stones, some of them cut from quarries hundreds of miles away, all perfectly aligned and put together by these people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago.
You know, most scholars would say they use a ramp, but if you think about it, like there's other scholars that would counter that by saying the construction of that ramp need to be in an angle that it could be so difficult to do that it will challenge the construction of the pyramid itself, you know?
Well, again, it's like, they use a ramp. I don't know what they used.
We don't know,
But whatever they used, it's so amazingly precise. Yeah. They were able to make this 2,300,000 stone structure. This still to this day. I haven't been, but I have friends that have gone. Like my friend Andrew Schultz just went. Danica Patrick, the race car driver, she told me she just went. People that I know that have been. My friend Eddie Bravo, when he went, he's like, you get there, you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's so big, apparently.
It's like an awakening.
Yes, that our idea of what it is, when you see it in a photograph, it looks incredible. But I guess I need to go, because I guess when you see it in person, it's just like a complete reset. Like it recalibrates what people are capable of, because you have to think like, man, this is 4,500 years old.
Think about Darren Kuyu, Gobtepe.
Yes,
man, it's
Gobekli Tepe's 10,000 years older.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's like 12,000 years old. You know, like
at least.
Like, how do you conceive that? And sometimes what happens is that it gets infected by other civilization that passed there after that construction. So they think they are the one that built it. I think is it Pumapunku, the one that there's clearly two different technology. You see the stone are perfectly aligned with perfectly cut. Yes. Then you have other stone that are just on top, like it's like a butcher's job, you know. And it's clearly not the same technology, the same people that built these two layers, you know.
Right.
So
well, that was also John Anthony West's concept of Egypt, that there's multiple eras, and that if you go deeper, like some of the stuff that they found when they dig deeper in the sand was a different construction method. It looked different designs, but still equally complex and fascinating. It's like there's probably many eras of human civilization, and there's probably been whatever it is, whether it's disease or some sort of a natural disaster or something that happened. Asteroidal impact was John Anthony or was Randall Carlson's and Graham Hancock's. Yeah. That's their theory. Is
12,000 years ago, the end of the Pleistocene.
Yeah,
but Homo sapien is date to 3,000 years old. So imagine
how many?
3,000.
No, Homo
sapiens 3,000.
I think it's older than that. I think it's several hundred.
300,000. Sorry.
Oh yes.
300,000. Sorry, my English.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Homo sapien is 300,000 in Morocco. I'm 100% sure. That's why I read about this kind of stuff.
I think they think it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. But so if you take that 300,000, 300,000 time for an evolution.
Right.
Why would it be only in the last 10,000 years that we would
invent such immense structures.
It's kind of strange. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's also different from all the other animals. Like, we're the only animal that wears shoes. We're the only animal that wears clothes. We're the only animal that really manipulates its environment the way we do. I mean, other animals think, bees make beehives and shit like that, but they don't do anything even remotely interesting in comparison to what we're capable of doing and what we have done for thousands and thousands of years. And why? One of the things that Bob Lazar said that he was taught when he was at Area S4, at Area 51 S4, was that one of the things that they were telling him was that human beings are the product of accelerated evolution, and that these creatures occasionally come back to check upon our progress. And yeah, which is crazy.
Wow.
But that might be how it works throughout the universe, is that these beings that are very far advanced, they come back and they see these creatures that are pretty close, and they give them a little boost. They push them ahead a little bit, because otherwise it would take so long. And maybe we don't have the amount of time because of the fact that we're in this fucking shooting gallery of asteroids, that these things come down and whatever progress you make is wiped out by impacts or by supervolcanoes.
It's crazy. It's not that crazy. If you look at the belief of human being through evolution, like in ancient Greek, they believe in they were believing in different gods, like in different times, different civilization had different belief. Now some people believe Jesus walked on water, which is fine too. That's their belief, If you believe that human was, the result of alien beings, it's another belief,
It's not.
Everybody believe in different things.
It's not that crazy if you think about what we're doing.